What if Qui Gon found Anakin as a baby? Let's start this story on Qui Gon's 40th birthday. He spent the day as he normally would, getting up and walking around the temple halls as his friends wished him a happy birthday. He goes to the meditation chamber and begins his daily meditation. However, this time it felt different. Something was off, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The currents of the Force were strong, stronger than normal. He's trying to clear his mind, but the Force is pulling him in one direction until all he sees in his mind is Tatooine. He stops the meditation and tries to think about what's happening. Could the Force be showing him a vergence? He decides to get into his ship and go to Tatooine. As he enters the atmosphere, he feels the vergence is extremely strong. He walks about Mos Espa until he reaches the house of Shmi Skywalker. He knocks, introduces himself as a Jedi, and she lets him in. He walks around, and he can definitely feel the vergence is here, as he realizes where it's coming from, as he lays eyes upon the baby in the crib, the 1-year-old Anakin Skywalker. Qui-Gon asks Shmi about Anakin, and she tells him the story. She didn't know what had happened. There was no father. He simply came into existence. Qui-Gon thinks about this. The baby is no doubt exceptionally strong in the Force, born to no father. Could he be the chosen one? Qui-Gon tells Shmi that Anakin has the power of the Jedi and is to be taken back to the Jedi Temple if she allows it. Shmi tells Qui-Gon she does, but their slave owners would have something to say about that. But Qui-Gon tells her not to worry. She can come with Anakin and they can relocate her after he is accepted into the Order. Qui-Gon takes Anakin in front of the Jedi Council and declares this boy to be the chosen one and tells them the story Shmi told him. He had Anakin tested on the way, a midichlorian count of over 20,000, higher than even Master Yoda. Shmi is brought in, which confirms the story, and the council can sense no deception in her voice. The council see no reason to deny Anakin into the Order, and declares that young Skywalker will become a Jedi and is accepted into the Order. After this, Qui-Gon relocates Shmi to Onderon, in the capital city Iziz, where she was originally from. She thanks Qui-Gon profusely for this, and asks him if he would be able to update her on Anakin's life. She knows that Anakin is not allowed to know about her, and she's okay with that. All she wants to know is how her son is helping the galaxy. A normal Jedi wouldn't do this, but Qui-Gon wasn't your typical Jedi, and agreed with what Shmi was asking. Now in the galaxy far, far away, the Jedi had the Force to shield their minds from prying eyes. Here in our galaxy, the Sith Lords of the Internet, your ISP, school or work IT, even the websites you visit are watching your every move. And no, browsing incognito mode is not the same as a Jedi mind trick. Incognito hides your history locally, but the Empire is still tracking you. That's why you need CyberGhost VPN, your own personal cloaking device for the digital realm. With over 38 million users worldwide and a near perfect Trustpilot score, it's the most recommended VPN in the galaxy. More than 20,000 people rated it excellent, and after trying it, it's easy to see why. CyberGhost encrypts and reroutes 100% of your traffic through their secure servers. Once you flip it on, no Sith, bounty hunter, or nosy administration droid will know what system you're traveling through online. And with servers in over 100 countries, you will always have hyperspace routes open, no matter where you are. With CyberGhost, you can unlock over 40 streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime, kind of like accessing hidden holocrons of entertainment across the galaxy. The app works on all operating systems and protects up to 7 devices at once. That means you, your crew, or even your whole rebel cell can stay covered. CyberGhost keeps no logs. Not even they will know what you are up to. If you're ready to step out of the shadows of the dark side of surveillance, now is the perfect time. By using the link in the description, you'll get an 83% discount and 4 months free. Plus, with a 45-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 support, it's completely risk-free. So go grab CyberGhost VPN through the link below and start protecting your digital life. Anakin became a youngling, and Qui-Gon knows he must become Anakin's master, as he feels it's his destiny to train the Chosen One and keep him away from the dogma and failings of the Jedi Council. Meanwhile, he takes Obi-Wan as his Padawan and begins training his second apprentice. Anakin begins his journey as a youngling. The difference in this timeline is that he wasn't corrupted by his past. He didn't live 9 years of slavery and have the strong attachment to his mother that held him back from the Jedi curriculum. Instead, Anakin flourished under Jedi training. Everything came easy to him. He was athletic from an early age and enjoyed lightsaber combat. He was easily the top of his class and worked his way through the various lightsaber forms. They held frequent tournaments with low output training sabers, and if a youngling knew they were going up against Anakin, they might as well quit. He enjoyed meditating, introduced to breathing techniques and guided meditation to focus the mind and connect with the living force. Anakin's connection to the force was so raw, he was able to enter deep meditations at a young age. Through this, he was able to get brief glimpses of events around the galaxy. However, one such planet stood out to him, often in his meditations: Onderon. He frequently saw the dense jungles, walled cities, and people carrying out their lives. At a young age, Anakin didn't know what to make of these visions, and he often saw the same people carrying out their daily tasks, working, doing the washing and cooking. One person that the Force focused on was a kind-faced, middle-aged woman with warm brown eyes. She had dark hair and gentle robes, and throughout his training, Anakin often got glimpses of her life on Onderon. He didn't know it, but Anakin was actually having visions of his mother across the galaxy. Through his meditative practice, Anakin learned to control his emotions. He wasn't hot-headed and fearful as he was in the original timeline. He was level-headed, able to accept his emotions and not let them cloud his judgment. The Jedi Council were happy with how Anakin's training was going, especially when he started learning Force techniques. He mastered these easy: Force push, heightened perception. Anakin's strength of precognition was far greater than any Jedi, and he was able to perceive glimpses of the future. Even though he was better than everyone his age, he didn't let this get to his head. He was a sort of second mentor to those in his class. Once he had mastered an ability, he wouldn't move on to the next straight away. He would spend time with other students, try to talk them through it, and help them the best way he could. And because of this, Anakin was loved. He got along with everyone. He was very charismatic for his age, saying hi to all the masters and knights as he walked through the corridors, and attempted to create a relationship with everyone. He was famous when he came to the temple, the proclaimed chosen one. However, he didn't let this get to his head. But the master who he was closest to was Qui Gon, because he was the one who originally brought him back to Coruscant. Anakin would spend time with Obi-Wan and Qui Gon when they came back from missions, eagerly asking what they got up to. And the day finally came, when Obi-Wan passed his trial to become Jedi Knight, and Qui Gon officially took Anakin to be his apprentice. Qui Gon didn't have much to teach Anakin about lightsaber combat or Force powers. By 13 years old, he was as proficient as a Jedi Knight would be. He conducted his own independent study in the temple, and Qui Gon advised him when he needed help. They spent a lot of time meditating together, as Anakin told Qui Gon about his Force dreams of people around the galaxy, but specifically the unusual obsession with Onderon. Qui Gon froze when Anakin told him this, explaining that the Force acts in mysterious ways, that in time he will have the answers of his vision. What Qui Gon taught Anakin about was his mentality and philosophy, and the best way Qui Gon thought to do this was through experience. This is the one thing Anakin lacked, and they spent most of their time around the galaxy, settling disputes between star systems, overseeing trade conflicts, and preventing wars from breaking out. This is what Anakin needed, and he was able to practice the skills that could not be taught: diplomacy, political knowledge, and leadership. They spent most of their time in the Outer Rim, where Anakin got to see the true nature of the Republic, the harsh reality of some of the lives in which citizens of the galaxy experienced. One day, their mission brought them to Tatooine to settle a trade dispute between rival gangs. After they were successful, they decided to meditate, but Anakin reported to Qui Gon that he felt something was off. The Force was connecting to him in an unusual way. Qui Gon suspected this might happen, but didn't think it would be this obvious to Anakin. They walked the streets of Mos Espa, as Qui Gon told Anakin this is where he found him years ago. Silence, and Anakin didn't respond. But Qui Gon knew Anakin was different to normal Jedi. Normal Jedi didn't think or care about their past, but he could tell Anakin was different. He was prevailed as the chosen one ever since he arrived. All this pressure thrust onto him, and he no doubt had questions about his past. He asked Qui Gon to tell him about his mother, and Qui Gon had no reservations about doing so. He told Anakin about Shmi, how he met her in one of the small huts on the outskirts of town. how she and Anakin were sold into slavery. More silence until Anakin asks Qui-Gon where she is now, but Qui-Gon draws the line here and tells Anakin it's best he not tells him. However, he can assure Anakin that she is safe. He made sure of that personally. Qui-Gon was okay with Anakin knowing about his past. He was different from most Jedi. He didn't believe attachments were necessarily a bad thing, and didn't want to oppose the curiosity that Anakin had into his past. He knew it was likely only a matter of time before Anakin learned the truth of his mother. He was already having Force dreams about her through the Force that he didn't realize was her, and knew the Force must be doing this for a reason. Anakin's training under Qui-Gon goes on like this for many years. He adores his master and truly thinks of him as his father. Obi-Wan often joins them on missions and becomes the brother Anakin never had. Qui-Gon successfully instills his philosophy into Anakin. Skywalker learned to focus on the present, to feel and use his instincts rather than focus on thinking, to follow the living Force, staying in the present and utilizing the connection to all living things. He taught Anakin to feel the Force fully, even his emotions, which normal Jedi were scared of, but maintain control through understanding rather than suppression. But what he taught Anakin that was pivotal was that it was okay to break the Jedi code from time to time, to defy the Council and to trust the will of the Force over institutional philosophy is okay, as he constantly reminded Anakin that they serve the Force, not the Jedi Council. Anakin was knighted in the year 22 BBY, the strongest Jedi Knight of his generation by far. However, in the months following this, Anakin and Qui-Gon begin to sense something was off. Anakin reported to Qui-Gon that his premonitions of the future were getting darker. They were of war, loss, and tragedy. They reported this to the Jedi Council, but of course, they didn't listen. And many months later, the Clone War began. The Separatists were led by Count Dooku. Meanwhile, all these years, Palpatine had been continuing his grand plan. He was fearful of Anakin Skywalker and his power ever since he arrived on Coruscant. He kept a keen eye on him, but he knew he was untouchable whilst he was in the Jedi Order. He wanted Anakin for himself, to become his Sith apprentice, but Palpatine knew this was impossible. However, with the Clone War he had just started, he had an opportunity to attempt to take Anakin out and stop him from fulfilling the prophecy. Shortly after the Clone War had started, Qui-Gon and Anakin talked about it. They knew it was the Sith's doing, and to get involved would be to do exactly what they wanted. They knew the Jedi were being drawn into politics and war, something the code forbade, and decided they would not have any of it. They would not fight. They discussed such thoughts with the Council, but the Council didn't have a choice. They were under Senate jurisdiction, and Palpatine had orchestrated it so that the Republic needed the Jedi to fight for them, or else they would certainly lose the war. Anakin and Qui-Gon didn't need to fight in the war, but that didn't mean they couldn't get involved. Together, they went to battle sites where civilians were to ensure the casualties were limited. They wouldn't attack separatists or defend the clones. They would ensure innocent lives were evacuated and civilian casualties were kept to a minimum. They did this for the first year of the Clone War, and there was some initial pushback from some Jedi, but others who resonated with this philosophy started to do the same. They spent a few days at the temple between missions until the next one came in. Qui-Gon looked down at his tablet. The Republic was tasked with defending the siege of Onderon. He had some reservations about this, wondering whether he should request a change in assignment, as he knew this is where Shmi, Anakin's mother, was. But he decided not to, and trusted in the Force. They go and do their role in battle. The Separatists were attempting to take over the capital city of Iziz. The battle was ruthless, as Anakin and Qui-Gon used their power to stop bombs from destroying buildings and protecting civilians from the scattered rubble. The battle was intense, and they started to evacuate civilians. However, one of the Separatist heavy cannon's shot misfired and directly hit the bell tower in the center of the city. It went flying, and Anakin chased after it. It soared towards a group of people, but Anakin jumps in front of it, uses all of his might to stop it with the Force, and lowers it to the ground. He turns to see the people who he saved, but it's not who he expected. It's one of the people from his visions. He knows this person, the brown hair, brown eyes, and soft expression. They stare back at each other, and Anakin mutters, "I know you." As she mutters his name, Anakin back. Anakin was confused. How did she know his name? Qui-Gon rushed over and realized what is happening. The Force had brought them together. He looks at Anakin and tells him that this is his mother, Shmi Skywalker. Both of them look at Qui Gon in shock and back at each other. Neither of them know what to say. Shmi hugs Anakin and then Qui Gon, telling them her address and to come find her after the battle. Qui Gon pulls Anakin away and they return to the fight, but he couldn't really focus on the battle. All his life, he didn't know who this woman was, why he was dreaming about her, and he hits himself for not putting it together that she was his mother. After the battle, they go to her home where they have the proper reunion. They speak about their lives, what Shmi's done since she returned to Onderon, and how Anakin and Qui Gon have been protecting the innocent in the war. Shmi couldn't be more proud, and Anakin was everything she'd ever hoped for. Shmi explained to them that she brought back her original home and actually told Anakin that he was born in this very building. However, Anakin thinks he already knew this. He feels more connected to the Force here than he ever has before. He stands, but quickly falls back to the ground, his mind encased in a Force vision. A crimson horizon stretching over endless stars, towers of black durasteel rising from burning worlds, banners of the Sith snapping in storm winds. He sees legions of soldiers in red, the Jedi Temple reduced to ruin, and at the center of it all, a throne of obsidian, cloaked in shadow and flame. He snaps out of the visions, sweating profusely. Qui-Gon kneels down and asks what happened. What did Anakin see? And Anakin told them, evil. He saw the Sith Empire in power once again, worlds burning in flames, and the Sith Emperor at the center of it all. Qui-Gon asked Anakin who the Emperor was, but Anakin told him the vision wasn't clear enough, and he lost connection before he could see it. Anakin asked why this happened, why here, and Qui-Gon explained what he thought. Anakin was a product of the Force. The Force had birthed him. It was in this very house in which the Force decided to touch the physical realm. This was a big deal. Anakin is a product of that event, and therefore can connect to this raw, untapped physical power. They sit cross-legged, opposite each other, as Qui-Gon guides Anakin through this meditation. Anakin falls back into the vision, the burning worlds, red soldiers, but he focuses on the Emperor's throne. It's still shadowed, but Qui-Gon keeps him grounded, telling him to push further. Anakin feels the Force stronger than he ever has before. He walks closer to the Emperor, the hood barely covering his face as a gust of wind pulls it back to reveal the face of the Sith Lord, Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin screams and is thrust out of the vision. It's Palpatine, he tells Qui-Gon, who looks back at Anakin in shock, asking if it's really true, but Skywalker confirms it. Their worst fears have been realized. Qui-Gon tells Shmi that they must go, but Anakin tells her he will come back. They board their ship and head back to Coruscant immediately. In their ship, they contact the Jedi Council to tell them the truth they have learned. But just as they're about to, they sense it through the Force. When Anakin laid eyes upon Palpatine in his vision, not only did Skywalker learn the truth, but Palpatine also did. As they made contact through the Force, Palpatine realized that Anakin had seen him. He had seen his real face. They connected to each other through the Force. Palpatine panicked, as he knew instantly that he had been exposed. He wasn't ready. The galaxy was not ready, but he didn't have a choice. He needed to accelerate his plans. He contacted Dooku and commanded the Separatist fleet to attack the planet, telling his apprentice that his identity has been exposed. The Separatists launched immediately as Palpatine went over to his communication station. He connected to every clone commander around the galaxy and uttered the words, "Execute Order 66. Meanwhile, Anakin and Qui-Gon felt it, as well as the Jedi Council. Qui-Gon told them that Palpatine must have learned he'd been exposed and told the Council to initiate the defenses of the Jedi Temple. They did, and Anakin and Qui-Gon came back out of hyperspace back on Coruscant to see the Separatist forces above the planet. However, what worried them is that they weren't attacking, merely were idle and waiting for command. Anakin and Qui-Gon fly their ship through the atmosphere to see the clones marching on the temple. They could hear the blast of fire and sense the loss of life, but Qui-Gon turned to Anakin and told him they needed to trust in the Jedi and needed to go for Palpatine. They land and rush inside, taking out the clones, blocking their entrance. They sneak into a Senate pod, and what they saw in the center of the chamber shocked them. Dooku and Palpatine together. Palpatine was explaining to the entire Senate how he and Dooku have agreed on peace terms, and the Republic and Separatists have come together against the common enemy, the Jedi Order. He begins detailing how the Jedi are the problem, that he recently learned the Jedi were actively prolonging the war and planning to use the chaos of war to seize power for themselves. Cries of anger echoed throughout the chamber, and Palpatine sympathized. However, Qui Gon and Anakin couldn't stand this, so they exit their pod to enter the arena and make eye contact with Palpatine. Qui Gon declares to the entire Senate that what Palpatine is saying are lies. The Jedi are the guardians of peace in the galaxy. The last thing they care about is power. Palpatine and Dooku are Sith, the mortal enemies of the Jedi, and their history is one of dominance and oppression. He proclaims that Palpatine and Dooku have been playing both sides of the war from the very beginning, that their public alliance now is only because they got exposed. Murmurs of agreement scatter, and there are senators on both sides, and Mas Amida calls for order. But Palpatine had had enough. He calls for the Coruscant Guard to arrest Qui Gon and Anakin, and blaster fire begins coming towards them. They ignite their blades to defend, as senators rush to escape from the chamber. Anakin sensed it before it happened, as clones began rushing all around them. He blocked the blaster fire back towards them, until Palpatine and Dooku were both upon them. They attacked ferociously, knowing they had to capitalize on this advantage whilst they had it. Anakin and Qui Gon were on the defensive, blocking attacks from the Sith as well as the clones. Qui Gon called out to his former master Dooku, asking for reason, but he was too far gone, too consumed by the dark side. The Jedi were backed up against the rear pods. As the Sith advanced further, it wasn't looking good. They couldn't balance the clone blasters and Sith lightsabers at the same time. It looked like the end, until glass shattered at the top of the chamber. They looked up to see two blue lightsabers coming down. Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi and Plo Koon had joined the fight. They saw the trouble Anakin and Qui Gon were in and focused on the clones. This freed them up, and they began fighting back. Anakin took on Palpatine, ready to face his destiny. Anakin was faster and stronger than Palpatine. His use of foresight was more accurate, which initially gave him the edge, but Palpatine's mastery of Sith alchemy came to good use. He started casting spells, sending blue fireballs at Anakin, who was forced to call off his attack to block. They stood opposite each other, 10 meters apart, as Anakin sensed the next attack. Palpatine conjured a bolt of Sith lightning, maybe his strongest ever. Anakin dropped his lightsaber and caught the lightning. He struggled with all his might, feeling the burn of the bolts tickling his arms, but he grounded himself and connected to the Force as strong as he could. They were in a stalemate, but Anakin pushed forward. He thought of everything that had just transpired, meeting his mother, saving her, finding out she's safe and proud of him. These good emotions fueled Anakin, and he used them to propel his power. He let the memory of his mother fill his mind, and he felt the Force surge through him, and pushed back with all his might, as Palpatine's lightning was directed right back at him. It hit the Sith Lord in the chest with the strength of a Star Destroyer, and he was sent flying back and crashed right into a group of Senate pods. He opened his eyes, dazed by the blow, as Anakin was on him. With a flick of his wrist, he disarmed Palpatine, and held his lightsaber at his throat, declaring he was under arrest. Anakin turns to see Obi-Wan and Qui Gon standing over Dooku in handcuffs, and they were successful in defeating the Sith. Kenobi told them they had successfully defended the temple as they took the Sith back to their prisons. Anakin and Qui Gon meet with Bail Organa and the Republic Security Council and successfully convince them of Palpatine's tyranny, and they execute Order 65 to overturn Order 66. They had done it. Over the following days, the Jedi attempt to reconcile the situation. They give all the evidence they have to the Senate of Dooku and Palpatine working together, and explaining Palpatine's claims of the Jedi wanting power for themselves a lie. However, the Order was severely hit. Order 66 had reduced the Order's numbers to a mere 1,000 Jedi left, and most of the council was killed. Qui-Gon and Anakin met with Yoda, Plo Koon and Saisi Tin, the only remaining members of the council left. They discussed what to do now, that the Jedi must support the galaxy in this post-war environment, but also work to rebuild their own forces numbers. But Yoda proclaims to them all that he failed as Grand Master, allowing the Sith to grow to that power. He turns to Qui-Gon and tells the Master that he believes he should be the one to lead the Order into the future. The Jedi needs to change, and he believes he's the best one for it. He looks at the other council members, and there are no signs of objection. Qui-Gon thinks on it, and accepts the offer, knowing the Order needs to change, and believes he can be the one to do it. Meanwhile, after the war concluded, Anakin went back to Onderon. He spent weeks with his mother, enjoying the quiet life and getting to know her. They get along amazingly, and this started to change how Anakin thought. The love he feels towards his mother is strong, and starts to believe that a Jedi should experience these emotions. When he returns to Coruscant, he talks about this with Qui Gon, who definitely agrees, and together, they decide the Jedi Order's philosophy on attachments must change. Attachments will become allowed, however, training you must have on how to control the emotions associated with attachments and to not let them consume you. Qui Gon puts his hand on Anakin's shoulder, telling him he must join the Jedi Council, that together they can be the pioneers of change in the Order. Anakin thinks on this, but tells his master that he's made a different choice. In the minds of the Jedi, he's completed his role as the Chosen One, defeating the Sith, but on a personal level, he feels there is more he can do. He references their adventures around the galaxy to the Outer Rim, where the real people need the Jedi's help. He can't help them simply as a Jedi on the Council, and tells Qui-Gon that his next path is outside of the Jedi Order, and he must follow the living force to do this. A tear shed from Qui-Gon's eye, not because he was sad Anakin was leaving the Order, but because this is always what he hoped for Anakin, deciding to act for the people of the galaxy, not just the Republic, and to follow the will of the Force rather than the Jedi Order. They hugged, and Qui-Gon told Anakin to remain in contact, who declared he would. Anakin returned to Onderon to live with his mother for a while, until he decided what to do. He could go directly to the Outer Rim to fight for the people that needed it, but this intervention was too downstream, and he needed to fight the cause of inequality around the galaxy, until he was hit with the idea. Anakin was born on Onderon, which meant he could run for senator of the planet. Over the following months, he joined the political landscape in the run for senator. He was an extremely popular candidate, as charismatic as he was, and the savior of the galaxy. After a long and grueling campaign, he was voted in as senator for Onderon, and he declared to fight, not only for the people of Onderon, but all those around the galaxy, regardless of where they were from. Anakin joins the Senate, the place where he knew he could fight for real change, with aspirations of one day becoming Supreme Chancellor. He joined the Outer Rim Committee, focused on bringing new worlds into the Republic, as well as ensuring these worlds had basic alien rights such as food, water, shelter, and warmth. Anakin enjoyed his new role, and felt as though this was his second calling. He was focused on his job and his relationship with his mother. He didn't think he had room in his life for anything else. But it all changed one day when a senator from the small planet of Naboo came into his office. She was barely older than him, but just as ambitious, as she detailed her ideas that they could implement to help the innocent in the galaxy, especially those not in the Republic who needed it the most. They continued the conversation over dinner, and only a few weeks later, Anakin declared his love for her, the Senator Padme Amidala, and they fell in love. Anakin Skywalker now had his true purpose. He had defeated the Sith, and now was dedicated to working for the innocent around the galaxy. With the love of his life, Padme by his side, they were an unstoppable force, the true guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. Don't forget to click on the description link to get the special discount CyberGhost VPN is granting to our channel users. This application will protect your data while you browse and give you full access to all blocked content on the internet for $2.03 a month only. Totally risk-free, so check it out. Link in the description.